What is this world my kids are growing up in?
How can I talk with my kids about the violence in Minneapolis?
Where do I start to help my kids understand how complex the world is?
My name is Ben, and with me today are Bridget and Jake. We are Faith Community's family ministry team. This week's message is specifically for parents, though we would recommend our middle and high school students watch as well. Just to forewarn you, some of the video content that we captured in Minneapolis may be difficult to watch for sensitive viewers. This past Sunday, we finished our teaching series about the Sermon on the Mount. This message comes to us in the midst of a very difficult week of pain and fear and anger surrounding the horrible murder of George Floyd at the hands of police officers who were supposed to be protecting and serving. We've seen so much chaos and pain in the past week. All the while, this has been happening with the backdrop of COVID-19. These are not only historical moments for our nation, but these are critical moments where we as parents have the responsibility to lead our children. We are here to share with you some of the ways you can talk with your kids about what's happening in the U.S. right now. We hope the family talking points that we've included would as well be of great use to your family. We learned from this week's sermon that a building needs to be built on a firm foundation, on solid ground. And just like buildings, you and I as people need a firm foundation for our lives. It is on this firm foundation that we speak from a heart of love to our kids by leading them through the very real storms of life.
Matthew chapter 7 says, "Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." When following Jesus, we're to avoid the wide road. We're to enter through a small gate and a narrow, skinny little road. That road leads to life. This is not only true for our salvation and eternity, but the road that we are called to walk when following after Jesus every day. We don't follow the world and how it says to live. We follow Jesus and how he says to live. Parents, this is so relevant because there's nothing easy about living this out, loving our neighbors, loving our enemies, loving those who are different from us, and showing both justice and mercy to our world. And by the way, if that's not enough to figure out personally for ourselves, we also have to help our kids. If you feel paralyzed in talking with your kids about the difficulties our world's facing, it's okay. It's good to admit to your children that you don't have all the answers. It's important that we try to seek and find the truth together to build one another up.
One of the writers in the New Testament says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what is God's will, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." This is a mindset, a way that God calls us to think and process our world. We are urged not to think the way the world does, but to think the way Jesus does. With that, we want to give you 3 truths that you as a parent can use to talk through and process many of the difficult realities from this past week.
Number 1, Jesus is the true foundation. Fear, in some sense, is a gift to humanity in that it utterly exposes what we are truly building our life on. These past days and months have challenged our sense of control. This is why Jesus talked about the foolishness of building a house on sand. Look at how quickly COVID-19 and then the unrest in Minneapolis have changed our circumstances. But there's hope. Jesus lived what he taught. Building our lives on Jesus means that we give up old ways of living and follow his example. It helps to learn from people who have met Jesus, know him, and are learning to follow him. We can see fruit in the lives of those who follow Jesus. The more we build our lives on Jesus, the more we actually look like him. Parents, when we talk to our kids about difficult things, we have to start with Jesus.
Number 2, sin is real. We need change. Sin exists, period. The original systemic issue for humanity is our sin. We first and foremost reject God. We ignore his design for us. From this, we then reject and ignore each other. putting ourselves first and holding back the dignity that others deserve for being made in the image of God. Change is needed, and everyone knows that right now. But because we're all sinners, we need heart change through the gospel. Here's one really helpful way that Pastor Tim Keller describes what sin looks like in this world. He says every culture that's not based on God will make an idol, an ultimate value out of something else, and that idol will necessarily divide. He says, if my highest love is my family, then I'll privilege my family over others. If it's my business, my racial group, or my individual selfish interests, I'll privilege my race or self over other races and selves. Parents, we have to help our kids see the reality of sin in this world. Otherwise, we cannot truly experience the hope and change that Jesus offers us.
Number 3, reconciliation is the way forward. Parents, we also need to help our kids understand that Jesus has put before us the choice to follow him, both as individuals and as a family, and build our lives on him as our foundation, or to build our lives on something else. The sand is everything else, but Jesus is the rock. Jesus isn't interested in making us religious. He wants to change our lives and the way we live from day to day. God has provided a way for us to be reconciled to him and for us to be reconciled with one another. Jesus is our only foundation for a flourishing life. Christians have the power through Jesus to be the leaders of reconciliation in this world. Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the peacemakers."
Parents, this has been a very difficult week, on top of a few very challenging months. We want to remind you that you matter to God and you matter to us. We hope that this week's Faith at Home content will help you discipling your family through difficult times. We're praying that you'll have the courage to lead. We're with you. God has graciously shown us the way. He has made it clear that He is the solid foundation our lives were made for. That's it for today. We really hope you scroll down and read the family talking points. We'll see you same time next week. Thank you for watching.